Good morning and welcome to Moments with Melinda. I am your host, Melinda Moulton. And today my guest is Tara Geraghty-Moats. Hi, Tara. How are you?
Hi, Melinda. I'm great. I'm just finishing up a training here in Greensboro, Vermont. As you can hear, I'm outside right now, which is where I spend most of my summer training.
Well, I'm so glad that you took the time to sit down with me and my viewers. I want to let you know that I have known Tara since the day she was born. We're good friends of her parents, and so I've known you since you were literally in diapers. But we won't get into that. But let me tell my viewers a little bit about you. Okay? So Tara Geraghty-Moats is an American ski jumper, Nordic combined and biathlon champion. She has competed at the World Cup level since the 2014-2015 season. She won the 2018-2019 Continental Cup season with 10 consecutive wins in 11 competitions. In December 2020, she won the first ever Nordic combined women's World Cup competition. Tara received the Fresh Tracks Award from the Vermont Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. Well, there you have it. I'm sure I missed some things, but we're going to get into it. Um, you're like my hero. I've always admired you so much, and I'm so excited for my viewers to learn more about you. Tara is a Vermonter, born and raised here. So let's start at the beginning and talk about your childhood growing up in Vermont.
Well, firstly, I want to just say that you're one of my heroes. You always do such a good job for speaking out about issues you care about and being involved in the Vermont community. So, very thankful for you as an individual in my wider Vermont community.
Mutual.
So like you said, I grew up in Vermont. My hometown was West Fairleigh, Vermont, and I now live in Albany, Vermont. So lifelong Vermonter. I grew up skiing at Mad River Glen and Oak Hill for cross country, and I also skied a little bit in New Hampshire. So that would be the Greens. So there's a software developer in New Hampshire, Greens, Dorchester area, and he just donated all these trails to cross country skiers and talk about community support. I learned how to cross country ski out there. So growing up all over Vermont and New Hampshire
So talk a
skiing.
little bit about your upbringing though, because you had kind of a back to the woods, childhood where you were introduced to nature early on, and it was not necessarily typical like many of us have raised our children. Talk to us a little bit about that and the care and tenderness that your mother gave you to love the outdoors.
So from my point of view, I did have kind of a typical Vermont upbringing. I grew up in a town of 500 people at the end of a long dirt road. I think it was about, I want to say 3/4 of a mile uphill, our driveway or the dirt road we lived off of. So not exactly a lot of, shopping malls or movie theaters or bowling alleys. Myself, like many Vermont kids, grew up playing in the woods, whether it was skiing or biking or running or I didn't do too much four-wheeling, but like there were four-wheeler trails all around our house that we ran on. And that really was what childhood was in West Fairleigh, Vermont. Whether you were fishing or were helping out on the farm, it was that quintessential, often kind of over romanticized childhood of being a rural child. And I learned how to, grow a garden, but I just thought that's how life was. I must have spent, a good 16 hours outside every day in the summer growing.
And
And I felt
that's very different from today's world, right?
right. There were no screens. I think we had a TV with 5 channels on it. And if you wanted to change the channels, you actually had to go out in the road and change where the rabbit ears pointed because the rabbit ears kept falling off our house because there was so much snow on the roof. So maybe that is a little bit of a lens into my childhood.
Fantastic. So, you talked a little bit about where you got your start in skiing, and I want you to talk about your relationship with Mad River Glen over in Fayston, and how this mountain helped shape your talent and your grit.
Yeah, so growing up, I started going to normal school, I guess, and then sort of gradually transitioned to more homeschooling and not going to, every day of elementary school and then middle school. And a lot of times we would go to Mad River and I would do some sort of schoolwork in the lodge a little bit and ski all day. And kind of the deal was if we were going skiing that day, we were going skiing. And it didn't really matter what the weather was or what the conditions were. We always just dressed for the conditions. And growing up, there was not like a chic skiing style at Mad River. You just put on as many possible layers as you could and went out the door and went skiing. And that kind of mentality of kind of meeting the mountain where it was at and respecting the mountain, whether it was really cold or windy or icy, but then enjoying the beautiful sport of skiing every day, no matter what, has really stuck with me as an athlete and served me really well in life and also as a competitor on the world stage.
So, was that pretty much your only sport, or did you do? I mean, no, did your mom homeschool you?
Yeah, so my mom was an outdoor educator for a long time, and then she did my homeschooling through elementary school, and then I went to a correspondence school. I never really intended not to go to traditional high school, but by the time I was 14, I was almost on the ski jumping development team, national development team. So I really would have had to choose between being a normal, like traditional high school student and being kind of an elite athlete at that time.
Did you do other sports? Were there any other sports that
I
you did?
didn't really compete full time in other sports, but I did every sport. I ran, I mountain biked, I tried out rowing. I didn't do so many team sports, but I tried to try a little bit of everything.
Good for you. So now there's a story about you at about age 9, and I believe when you competed in the Triple Crown all-terrain contest at Mad River. It was at Tower 10, and you had a broken ski binding. Nevertheless, you skied the event on one ski as a telemark skier, winning not only in the under 13 division, but also in the women's overall. I mean, the whole group at Mad River was just blown away by this. Talk us a little bit about that moment in your life at 9 years old.
Yeah, so I remember that day my binding broke and I was going to ski down on one ski and I was kind of bummed that I wasn't going to be able to do this competition because I was really looking forward to it. All my friends were doing it. And then I realized like this isn't about winning. This is about just going down and having the best run you can. So why not see what I can do on one ski? And I had always played around with skiing things randomly on one ski, especially when the mountain opened at the first part of the year. There weren't so many trails, and I could ski on one ski. It was just kind of a fun thing I did sometimes. So I figured I would try it, even though it was a competition. And then I didn't really realize kind of how impressive it would be or think about other people's reactions. I just kind of
Was
went
that the
down on
moment?
one.
Was that the moment you realized that you could be a champion and that you decided to take on the sport seriously? I mean, when did that moment happen
I
for
never
you?
really think of myself as a champion. And I know that might
Well, we
sound
all
like
do.
I'm not confident enough. Well, I appreciate that. But I think of myself as just a lifelong skier. I love to ski and that's why I do it. And of course, if you're representing the USA and everyone back home, it does become more serious. There's a lot of people who have put time and effort into you as an athlete and you don't want to let them down. But it's really important to me to kind of keep that childlike love for the sport while I'm also competing at a very high level.
Well, to me, that makes you a champion, quite frankly, that attitude. But there must have been a point in time when you thought to yourself, or maybe your parents, where you said, I want to get out there and compete. What was that moment for you, if you can remember it?
I think it was a gradual thing for me. So if I look at my goals from when I was about 12 years old, my long-term goals, my cross-country junior team did a little goal sheet and it was like short-term goals, long-term goals. And on there I did have go to world championships, go to junior world championships. I think ski 50K was on there. So you can kind of tell from that I had it in my sort of long-term goals. I had it in my viewpoint, as it were, but I was more focused on like what competition am I going to do next? Like, can I get a purple ribbon at the Bill Koch Festival? Can I do the unconventional terrain competition? I think one of the competitions at Mad River where I realized I could be a very good skier is actually the vertical challenge. So that's a competition where you ski for 7 hours straight and see how many runs you can do on lift line. And it was a really cold, windy day, and I skied all day long. I think I did 21 runs. I was 9 years old, and I came in third in the women's open class. And I realized that skiing for me was a very natural thing to do, and I had an ability that was good for anyone of any age.
Amazing. 9 years old. So now you excelled in ski jumping at a very early age. So when you talk about it, just being that you want to just ski, I mean, there's something about going off of a jump where you're flying in the air for, hundreds of feet and hoping that you can land on your two skis. I want you to talk to us about a little bit about your pursuit of this sport and share with us how you were able to get women included in ski jumping competition and in the Olympics.
That's right. I started ski jumping when I was 9. I always loved the feeling of flying through the air. I was one of those kids that loved jumping off things, whether it was a slide or the bed, or a ski jump. And so ski jumping was very natural for me. And I was on the development team at 16 years old. I learned to jump in Hanover, New Hampshire, Lebanon, New Hampshire, and went on to jump in Brattleboro, Vermont, and Lake Placid, New York. And then pretty quickly, I realized that Nordic combined, which is cross-country skiing and ski jumping, was not Olympic sport for women, but it was for men. So at a very young age, I kind of became an advocate for getting into the Olympics, getting it into world championships for women, getting it into junior nationals, junior world championships, and was one of the first voices internationally that really started to question why do we not have the sport for women while we have it for men?
And so what happened
Well,
with
I
all
went
the
on to win the
advocacy?
first ever World Cup for women in Nordic combined after many, many years of advocating for it and doing that with a community of people who are really supportive of kind of bringing women to that level where we earned our spot at World Championships. So that was really a lifelong dream come true to like have a World Cup for women in Nordic combined, but also to do well, to be the first women ever to win a World Cup and go down in history. It was really a fairy tale ending, which you don't always get in sports.
And what was the reason that they didn't want women? I mean, you advocated and you got ski jumping competition for women in the Olympics, but was it because men were concerned that you were lighter and could fly farther? I mean, what was holding them back?
I mean, I think that is kind of oversimplifying it. You see this a lot in social justice issues, right? They were afraid that women weren't at a high enough level and would kind of be an embarrassment to the sport. So then they didn't want to give the women opportunity to compete. So then it kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you take opportunity away from a group of individuals, they don't have an opportunity to develop. Kind of like if you don't let people learn how to read, they're not going to be able to read books. So then they're like, well, you don't need libraries anyway, if that makes that analogy make sense. The
That's a
same thing
great.
was happening with Nordic combined. So they weren't allowing women to compete. So there were no women who did Nordic combined. So they didn't want to have any competitions for women. And the circle was just kind of stuck there and had been stuck there for almost 100 years, even though that sounds crazy. And they were able to break that cycle with women's ski jumping. Women's ski jumping got in the Olympics in 2014 through a lot of advocacy, mostly through a kind of homegrown group of parents and coaches in Park City. And that group really thought that, oh, if we get women ski jumping in the Olympics, Nordic combined will just follow naturally. But really, we had to go through the same process over again with Nordic combined.
And we're going to talk about that. That's on my agenda. Now, I think you went to Norway to run cross country after getting injured at Lake Placid while jumping. And I believe you made the Norwegian junior biathlon team. I think you were 15 at the
Sweden. Sweden.
what? What?
Sweden. I went to
Oh, in
Sweden for a
Sweden.
year
Okay, so it
as an
was
exchange
Sweden.
student.
Okay.
I went to Sweden for a year as an exchange student in biathlon when I was 19 and 20, and that was an amazing experience.
And you won the countries. You won Sweden's national junior championships.
I did. So in the sprint class of the junior national championship, I won. So it was a really proud moment for me. I had worked really hard at biathlon. Biathlon is a sport that I really love, but I'm not as naturally talented at as ski jumping and Nordic combined. So it took a lot of work for me to get there, a lot of struggles. And then at the end of the year in April or end of March, I was able to get a junior national championship and beat my fellow classmates that I had trained with all year. And that's when I really understood how hard work can pay off and consistency and dedication to something can pay off.
And biathlon to my viewers is cross country skiing, and then you have to lay down and shoot and hit a target. And so you're exhausted. You're not exhausted, but certainly I would be.
Okay.
So you're tired and you've been skiing, and then you have to lie down and steady your gun and hit the. So that's what biathlon is. Now this win led you to compete internationally in the Nordic combined, eventually becoming the FIS world champion. I hope they have that correct. They staged 11
Yeah.
events.
So, like, it is kind of complicated. I've competed internationally in ski jumping, Nordic combined, and biathlon, and those are all three different sports. I'm the only American to ever go to world championships in ski jumping, biathlon, and Nordic combined.
The only American, male or
Ever.
female,
Male or
ever.
female. Yes.
Well, I think that should be tattooed on your chest. I mean, dear Lord, maybe not your chest, but your back. I mean, that's extraordinary. But you became an FIS world champion, and they staged 11 events, and you won 10 of the 11. This should have taken you to the Olympics. Why didn't it?
Because they didn't have Nordic combined for women. And just recently, they've taken Nordic combined out of the Olympics completely because they didn't want to add women. So they decided that they were going to make the sports gender equal by taking out Nordic combined instead of adding women, which is really crazy.
Oh, it's horrifying. I hope that nobody in our realm is leaving that to lie, that we're going to keep fighting. But we're going to move on. I want to move into that. The International Olympic Committee's decision to eliminate all Nordic combined from their competitions as of this year. It existed as a competition since 1924, the first Olympics, but it never ever included women. So talk to us about your activism to get women included, because they were excluded forever. And now the Olympics' response is to eliminate the oldest winter competition for both men and women, and they've taken it off their competition roster. And you think it's because rather than give it to women, I mean, how sexist is that? I mean, I would think that there would be some legal ability to I mean, I don't know if there's discrimination policies in the Olympic committees, but that is discrimination beyond belief.
So do you want to know a crazy fact, Melinda?
Yes.
The IOC is a nonprofit organization. You know how many billions of dollars they make? And give to NBC and donate to national governing bodies, but they are a nonprofit. So they are not subject to a lot of the rules, regulations, constrictions that like a company might be subject to, because they're a nonprofit. But they're a very, very powerful nonprofit that gives a lot of money, development money, to national governing bodies all over the world in every different sport. So it really becomes a very political dance about what sports are added and what sports are taken out. And like you said, they took out a sport that has been in the Olympics for over 100 years. Now, they said that if women's Nordic combined developed quickly and had successful world championships and had successful engagement and showed growth, that they would add it to the Olympics. And we met every single one of those checkpoints that they laid out for us, and they didn't add us. They
How do the men feel?
out completely.
And
they did.
Go ahead.
They did add other sports just recently in July that didn't meet those benchmarks they set for us. So not that I don't want to see other sports in the Olympics, but it was very disappointing to see Synchro 9, for example, which requires a lot of athletes to get credentials and hasn't had that many international competitions and is a very new discipline. They added Synchro 9 for ice skating, which again, it's a beautiful sport. I don't have any objection to them being in the games, but they were not nearly at the level that women's Nordic combined or Nordic combined as a sport was at. And they didn't have near the engagement. And the same thing could be said of ski mountaineering. I mean, they haven't had as many world championships, they haven't had as many World Cup competitions, they don't have as many competitors, and they added them. So it is very confusing that they didn't want to add
So
Nordic
how did the
combined.
men feel about this? How did the men feel about losing Nordic combined? I mean, did they join
Yeah,
you in this battle to keep it?
they did. So the athletes as a whole over the last 4 years have come together. We've written uh, letters to the IOC, to our NGBs, to diplomats around the world advocating. I mean, Lieutenant Governor Rogers even wrote a letter to the IOC. German diplomats, Austrian diplomats. Like, this was a very international effort to kind of advocate and lobby the IOC to keep Nordic combined in and add women, and it was not successful, unfortunately.
So you did fight the battle for women's ski jumping and you won, but this battle you lost. So
Correct.
I want you to talk about how this loss and the having to fight to have your skills and your genius and what you do recognized. How have they affected you both as an international female champion and as a woman dealing with deep sexual discrimination?
I think that coming face to face with sexism at 11 years old is not a experience that most Western women have. And it made me very aware of social injustices towards women the world over. And I think that it's something that in general the world doesn't take seriously enough. I mean, it's easy for me to feel sad and disappointed, but then I look at all the other issues around the world where this is also a factor and how we as a culture kind of turn a blind eye to sexism in general. And it just makes me want to educate people and stand up for it. And I'm going to paraphrase, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg basically said, Gen step forward for gender discrimination happens slowly and consistently. It doesn't happen all at once. And I really am guided by that of the more education and the more advocacy we can have, the better. And you're going to take steps back. But at the end of the day, I still have world championships this year for women's Nordic combined. And that is as a direct result from the advocacy I and others did. So I'm going to take that opportunity and make the absolute most of it, and then continue to advocate for the return of Nordic combined into the Olympics. It's not over, and the Olympics in 2034 will be in Park City, Utah for ski jumping, or Salt Lake as a general venue for the Olympics. So Salt Lake 2034, and hopefully we can get Nordic combined back in the Olympics for 2034 with
Well,
men and women.
if there's anything that I can do or my viewers, let me know and we'll join this fight with you. Now, you joined the Army and you pursued a biathlon competition. And I believe that a lot of this had to do with money. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but as a biathlete competitor, you could be subsidized by the U.S. Army to support your competition. And therefore, by joining the Army, you were sponsored. And as an Olympian, you're not sponsored unless you get, I mean, I don't even think you can put Pepsi on your back. I mean, you don't get money when you're a champion or an Olympian. So going into the Army for you was it's so interesting that you did that. Can you explain that to my viewers?
So we're not exactly subsidized. I joined the military because as an older athlete, and I say older, I was under 30, um, but I wanted to make sure that I had a career away from being an athlete. Because at some point I am going to stop competing in athletics. And it was very important to me to not have a moment of what do I do now and be able to develop a career outside of athletics. And for me, a really good choice was the Army with that. I really enjoy the Army because there's so many opportunities within it. Many people kind of think of the Army as you're driving tanks and you're shooting guns, but I'm actually working in HR. Another career in the Army that interests me was being a dental hygienist or working in the medical department. There's so many opportunities within the U.S. Army in terms of careers, and you can change careers several different times, but then keep your promotion, keep your rank, and keep moving upwards. In the civilian world, if you want to switch careers 5 times, you might take a big hit to your career. So that really appealed to me. There's also a biathlon team within the Army. The Army has Army sports, because obviously being physically fit is very important in the Army. So if you qualify for a national team in biathlon, they will help you attend those national team camps or the international competitions that you qualify for. So you do have to meet that very high level of qualifying for international competition. It's not something that you can kind of just show up for. You like most Army things, you really have to earn your stripes to get there. But it was an amazing opportunity for me to be able to have a military career and then be supported to compete internationally at the same time.
Okay, so in America, the U.S. ski team does not support Nordic skiers to the same extent it supports snowboarders and alpine skiers. Why is that?
That's a great question. Um, they're definitely the U.S. ski team is supporting ski jumping a lot more than it used to. But given the fact that we have great results for ski jumping for the past few seasons, and we also have multiple medals for Nordic combined, it is very confusing to me that the US ski team doesn't support us more financially. For example, I had two World Cup medals last season, and the US ski team is not giving me any money. But at the same time, I have to wear a jacket that has the US ski team sponsors on my jacket if I want to be part of the ski team and represent the US ski team. So they do some stuff for us in terms of like insurance. They let us use some physical therapy. They give us Kodiak cakes for like snacks and stuff. But it is kind of crazy, like the differences between sports and the differences between financial support.
Have you met with the leaders of the organization? Have you actually gotten through in the door and met with the board and yeah,
So there's a lot of people working together to try to kind of
good.
address this issue. The way the USOPC does it is athletes elect athlete representatives, and those athlete representatives are the representatives of the board. At this point in time, I'm not an athlete representative, but we do have some really great athlete representatives like representing us and speaking with the board. Really, what it comes down to is there's private and corporate sponsors that donate money, and a lot of those private and corporate sponsors earmark it for alpine skiing, and that none of it goes to Nordic combined or ski jumping. For example, the U.S. Army is actually one of the sponsors for the ski team, but somehow none of that money goes to ski jumping or Nordic combined.
That's crazy. Wow. Well, you're a warrior. So you need to get you're just this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to have to fight for this and but as a woman,
Well,
it's
and
so
also
discouraging.
a lot of things you kind of have to pick your battles, right, Melinda? So,
Right.
I mean, the ski team is doing quite a lot right. There are resources athletes who are injured can use. They just have a partnership with the uh, Utah State, so we can take free classes through University of Utah, which is a great resource. But again, that doesn't really get you to the starting line, right? So what I have to do is do a lot of fundraising for that, and kind of that's under my wheelhouse, which kind of turns into a part-time job. And right now, I have a military career, I have a fundraising part-time job, and I'm on two different national teams. So that doesn't leave a lot of extra time in my life.
Well, I'm glad you found time for us um, to speak with us today, Tara. So
Well,
you're
and thank you so much for having me.
oh yeah,
I
really,
really
truly.
do.
So
And I say that I do a lot, but I think most Vermonters and most people listening to this show also do a lot in their lives. Like that is not so different from a lot of individuals.
well, a lot of women have to fight for, I mean, you faced it in this realm. A lot of women face it every day in their careers and everything, and even their marriages. So, your mother, Betsy Geraghty, has been a strong influence in your life and one of your greatest supporters. I believe that she takes tremendous pride in your extraordinary accomplishments. So, talk to us a little bit about your relationship with your mom.
My mom really instilled in me a love for the outdoors. One of her favorite lines is running shoes are cheaper than a therapist. And she doesn't mean that in that don't go to therapy, but she means that in nature can be a really amazing healer, and it can be really important for your health, like physically and mentally. And getting outside has always been kind of a cornerstone of her life lessons. And I remember in when she did homeschool me in elementary school, one of her big things, we would go outside and we would take field books, and I would write down the weather, and I would write down what was going on in the outside world, and kind of that observant always curious, always questioning attitude, while being outside has served me amazingly in life. And I think it's so important that we pay attention to the outside world around us, whether it's the people in our community or, what's going on in our community in terms of, how are the forests doing? Like, what is the forest management plan? What is the town zoning? Are the farms in the town using a lot of pesticides? Are they able to make a living on the dairy farms? What kind of taxes are affecting them? It's endless. If you are aware of your community and aware of the world around you, it gives you so much more power because knowledge is power, right?
Here, here. So, what words of wisdom would you give girls today who want to follow in your footsteps in the ski competition world?
I think number one is to never give up on your dreams and to not compromise on your dreams. I think I recently took 5 years away from the sport of ski jumping and then kind of announced that I wanted to go back. And there weren't a ton of people who believed in me, but I decided that this was something that I wanted to do and would make me happy. And I took a step-by-step approach and came back and got World Cup medals from it. And that was a real testament of, even if you don't have a full crowd behind you, believe in yourself and always ask, what about this can't I do? So break down your dreams and take it one step at a time and believe in yourself.
That's so beautiful. So, what words of wisdom can you give my viewers who are facing some truly deep fears about the future of our world, whether it's climate change or all the other issues that we're facing, the economy, the wars? I mean, what keeps you, what helps you sleep at night? What?
I think that for me, it's a lot easier to deal with fears when I'm doing something, even if it's something small. And we live in a very volatile time, whether it's forest fires or political change in the world. And I think a lot of humans have also felt that they lived in a very volatile time through humanity. So that's kind of important to keep it in perspective. But pick something that really matters to you and work on it, whether it's being on your town select board or campaigning for a candidate you believe in, or just picking up litter by the side of the road, or funding an athlete who needs funding. Do something. And I think that will make you feel a lot better that you're doing what you can. I mean,
And,
it can also be pretty overwhelming. And I think just realizing that it's okay to be overwhelmed and it's okay to be a little scared. It means you're paying attention and, get outside, breathe the air, take a few deep breaths and carry on.
and it makes a difference. So, we've run out of time, Tara. Thank you so much for sharing your life and your indomitable spirit with my viewers. We're proud, so proud to have you as one of Vermont's most accomplished ski sport champions and as a member of our community. Born and raised here, you are an inspiration to so many, and you've been an inspiration to me for your entire life. So thank you for taking this time and for being outside. I love the fact that you're sitting outside surrounded by nature. I'm so glad we're doing this and you're outside. If I had known, I would have sat outside, but I'm stuck in here. But thank you so much for taking the time, Tara. It means the world.
Thank you too, Melinda. I appreciate it.
And to my viewers, I want to thank you all for joining us today. And you know what? I'm going to see you next time. Thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.